Hey, let's walk through some prompts that allow you to make ad like this using ChatGPT. Let's do two things today. Let's go through some examples and then some prompts that led to these examples, and we'll go from there. So let's go through example number one. And what I did here was cross-pollinate. So we have an ad here from Bamboo Earth. I think they're doing like 30 million a year or something. And I found one of their ads that I quite like. It's an ad that is suitable for appealing to net new audiences. And what I mean by that is people who have never been exposed to you before, which has historically been the hardest type of advertising to create, because most of us don't really have an issue making ads for people who are considering buying our stuff. An example of that is over here. For example, with this Ridge ad or this Hexclad ad, you can see here that they're quite offer driven, right? We're highlighting the guarantee. We're saying how much you can save up to, 85 euro. Over here, it's buy more, save more. These types of ads aren't too hard to make because conceptually they're easy to come up with ideas for. But what's harder is the stuff over here. For people who haven't been exposed to you yet, how do you get them to pay attention? And so Bamboo Earth here is doing a good job. This is not an offer ad. This is speaking to a potentially unspoken desire that their audience would want to have solved for them. So what we've done here is cross-pollinated what's here for skincare and Bamboo Earth and smashed it together with Create, who sells creatine gummies. And the end product was something like this, which I think it did a pretty good job of. So let's read the ads. It's not just for muscles. No, it's not just for guys stacking weight plates. It's not just about size. It's not about ego. This is creatine for your brain, your energy, your recovery, your rhythm, support strength, focus, and function daily. No shaker needed. You should try it. So I thought it did a pretty good job of it. And I wasn't even really specific about exactly what I wanted. And we'll get into the prompt in a second. But what's good about it is it played on the angle of Bamboo Earth over here and adapted it for the product in a way that wasn't misapplied. So what it did was actually speak to the audience in a way that they can relate. Because historically, the narrative around creatine has been, it's for gym bros, it's for bodybuilders, it's for athletes. And right here, it's calling out in the headline, it's not just for muscles. And the other line that I really liked from it was around the one down here about no shaker needed, because that's the typical thing with creatine is that you take it in powder form. And one of the unique propositions about Create Wellness is that they've made creatine in gummy form, which is a lot more palatable for most people. All right, the second example that it created for us. It's not your brother's creatine, not the gritty powder, not the post-workout bloat, not the synthetic tasting junk, not the stuff with the warning label. We didn't make creatine for bodybuilders. We made it for people who care about performance and wellness. Clean ingredients, smart delivery. It's creatine that fits your life. You should try it. Again, I quite like it because I don't know too much about Create Wellness in their exact brand playbook, but I think this speaks to the audience that they're going after from the ads that I've seen, in particular, appealing to women. All right, let's do a walkthrough of the prompting that got us here. So what I did here was I pasted in the reference image, which is the image from Bamboo Earth. And then I wrote this out. So take on the role of an expert consumer behavior expert. And I was doing this while doing cardio on my indoor bike, such as William Leach, Rory Sutherland, Dan Ariely, Robert Cialdini. Analyze every component of this ad and explain why it's working well, from psychology to imagery to typography to color to composition. Then it gives me a breakdown. And the reason why I like approaching it this way in this particular workflow, and this is just one of many workflows that you can go about, is that we're giving the model some context to work with and some direction so that when it does create images for us, it has this in its past in the context window, and it can have a little bit of a bias towards appealing to what I've requested over here, which is mentioning consumer behavior psychology experts, because I want it to have a bias towards ads that are psychologically driven and not offer driven. Just jumping back to this diagram over here, in order for us to appeal to people who have never been exposed to us before, using more psychology driven ads as opposed to offer driven ads is one of the ways in which I like to approach it. So it does a breakdown for us, which, just being honest, I didn't actually read at all in this workflow. What I wanted to do was just have it go through the motions of doing the analysis so that when I do tell it to make an image, it's already on that train track. So the next prompt I have over here is, based on your analysis, adapt the tactics to my creatine gummies, not creative gummies, at Create Wellness. And there's a little bit of nuance here in that I made the assumption that it was trained on the brand Create Wellness because the knowledge cutoff is June 2024, and Create has been around since 2022. So what it does is basically take the analysis that it did for Bamboo Earth and then applies the tactics over to Create, which again, I didn't even really dig into too much. I just want to get to the point where we could create something and then give feedback after I saw the visual. So the next prompt was, I've attached the inspiration ad and images of my products. Generate an image ad for me based on what you shared above, ensuring my products are in the image. And we've modeled the example closely from a tactics, strategy, and copy standpoint without copying the image. And so I reattached the example over here from Bamboo Earth, and then I attached the product over here of Create's creatine gummies. That way it has the resources it needs to do its job. And I did give this image originally at the beginning of the chat, but just for redundancy, I like to add it in again to reduce the chance of hallucinations. So the first thing it spat out visually looked okay, but it missed the mark because I don't really care about saying that it's not caffeine. The other problem was that the label is actually different from the example label that I gave it. So you'll see that it actually looks quite different. Well, subtly different. Like the one that it did up has purple in it now, and it's also much taller than the example that I gave. So what I did was I said, edit the product to be verbatim with my product. You made some edits to the label that I don't want. Thank you. And I found that it actually doesn't do a good job of maintaining consistency in the product. So part of the work in the last 5% over here is actually touching up those details, where you use something like Canva or Photoshop, or you pass it off to a designer who's talented. And let's say you were happy with everything that was here except for the product label and the product that was here, you would just have them swap it, which is very doable. So the next version that it did, I also wasn't super happy with because it says it's not creatine. And to me, that's misleading because the product is creatine. And I kind of understood the direction it was trying to take, but it was a little bit too off the mark for me. But visually, it looks great. It's got the gummies over here. It's got the product. It's quite balanced, but the copy is what I took issue with. So that's exactly what I said right after, which was I like the design, but the copy needs work because the product is creatine. So what it ended up giving was sort of flat copy that I didn't really like. It's creatine, but different. To me, like having to say you're different isn't as strong as showing that you're different. So the feedback that I gave was not yet. I'd rather come up with an it's not type copy first because I like that approach more. So it ended up giving a few options. It's option 1, the anti-creatine creatine. Option 2, it's not gym bro creatine. Option 3, it's not part of your routine yet. I didn't really like 1 and 3, but I did like option 2. So I said option 2 is in the right direction. Let's do more variations of that are meaningfully different. I thought there was a seed of a concept there. And then what it did was it gave me something that I actually quite liked. It's not your brother's creatine, which ended up being this one over here. So we had this one. It's not a hassle. It's creatine. Didn't really like that one. It's not creatine with a flex emoji. Didn't like that one. It's not just for muscles. So that's the other one that we did over here. It's not just for muscles. So originally went with this one. That's the next one to create. Just said use variation D in the latest design. And that's when it came up with the one that I showed earlier. So it took a few minutes for that. And then right after that, I said again with variation A. And just for reference, variation A was the one around it's not your brother's creatine. And so it ended up doing, this one. It's not complex, which is not the one I was going for. So all I had to do was paste it in, basically the one that I was going after, which was the it's not your brother's creatine headline and body copy. So then ended up doing it, and it did a pretty good job. Again, taking it to what I feel is 90-95%. And then you could throw this into something like Canva and swap in the proper product image. So let's actually give that a shot right now. So just pasting it into Canva right now. And what I'm going to do is edit the photo, do a magic erase, zoom in a little bit. All right, going to erase that. So now that took out the product, and now I'm going to need a new product. So I can hop over here back to my chat with ChatGPT, grab this, copy, paste it, and let's see if we can do a good enough background remover here. All right, came out all right. So what you could do, and again, I'm not a designer, so I'd pass this off to my designer instead, who's awesome at stuff like this and awesome at creating things from scratch too. But now the speed is so much faster. So you can do something like this, and then you can do some edits with shadows to make it look like it pops out a little more. So not quite there yet, but if you had a designer or you had more time, you could beef this up way more. Or what you could do instead is use one of the photos that just has a black image, a white image behind it, kind of like this. Let me test this out. Yep, cool, something like this, something like that. And also what's kind of cool about Canva as well, it's a bit of a side quest. Just want to show you what else it can do. It can do a magic expand to fill out what's missing on the page. Yeah, cool. But yeah, you can play around with it a little more. And if like me, you're not a designer, you can find someone who can do this to a higher standard. Okay, let's do another example and walk through the examples themselves and also the prompts that got us there. So I found this ad from Love Every that I quite like. I know that the brand FabFitFun has done a similar style of ad that they scaled up quite meaningfully. I think something like 200K in spend over a few weeks or something like that. So it's an engagement style ad. And what I mean by that is it's still optimized for purchase conversion, but the concept is based on engaging with the ad. So it says you have a free hour with the kids, choose one plaything, and there's 6 different toys. And this is actually a brand that my wife actually shops from and is subscribed to for our son. So I thought it'd be cool to cross-pollinate this approach with DadGang, who's growing quite quickly. They are a team of 3 co-founders working with a 3PL, and I think that's the extent of their team. And they're doing like 10 million a year. So what I did was basically took this reference image, took 6 hats that I pulled off of their website, and then it came up with stuff like this. And I thought they were pretty good. And of course, we can spot some of the imperfections, but I liked the approach of you've got 5 seconds before the kids find you, choose one, kind of clever there. And not clever for the sake of clever, but clever in a relatable way. Next one's pretty emotional. You wore a cape as a kid. Now you wear a cap as a dad. Choose your lid, which I think they have used vocabulary like lid in their marketing before. So did a pretty good job based on its training data. And then a final one here, because this one's similar to the other one around the Cape. Final one is, you're not just a dad, you're building a legacy, choose your lid. So pretty cool. All right, let's walk through the prompts. So similarly, very verbatim process as the last one. Reference image over here and the same prompt that I used while on my bike. So take on the role of an expert consumer behavior expert. Some redundancy there, such as William Leach, Roy Sutherland, Dan Ariely, Robert Cialdini. And I didn't say this earlier, but these are notable figures who have shared their expertise on topics related to either marketing or consumer psychology or both. Analyze every component of this ad and explain why it's working well, from psychology to imagery to typography to color to composition. So exact same thing as the one with Create. And by the way, these authors, you should probably check their stuff out because they will make you a better marketer and give you a lot of perspective that will help with marketing that is more on this layer of speaking to people who have never been exposed to you, as opposed to only this layer where people have either already been exposed to you or they're considering buying, where this stuff is, medium to easy difficulty, but appealing to a lot of people who don't know about you is harder. So again, getting the train tracks going, letting it do the breakdown so that it has some context. And then the next thing was over here, attached images of the product. Based on your analysis, adapt the tactics to our products at dadgang.co that you've been trained on. See attached as well. Again, this is because the knowledge cutoff is 2024. And I know that DadGang launched before that and has been around since I think 2021 or 2022. So didn't need to upload any PDFs or Google Docs about the brand, but you could definitely do that if you're a newer brand or you are just launching. Okay, so what it gave us was its thoughts on how it could adapt the example ad and what worked in the example ad to the products and the brand. So then did the next prompt, which is actually getting it to generate an image for us. I've attached the inspiration ad and images of my products. Generate an image ad for me based on what you shared above, ensuring my products are in the image, and we've modeled the example closely from a tactics, strategy, and copy standpoint without copying the image. So same as a Create one. And then it came up with this one over here. You're not just a dad, you're building a legacy, choose your lid. So some comment, again, I think it's 95% of the way there. Some issues are around the actual hats themselves. If you look closely, it actually changes up the design subtly. So kind of like what I mentioned earlier about the last 5%, what I've found is that the touch-ups are going to have to be on stuff like labels and writing and your product. But as a concept though, I think it's done a pretty good job of concepting out stuff and also getting it to a point where we can swap things in and out using Canva or Photoshop pretty easily. And the other thing it did here as well is the names of the products I don't think is actually accurate to the names of the products on their website, but can't blame it for trying to take initiative. So gave some feedback, nice, pretty good. Let's do another one that's meaningfully different to A/B test with based on the analysis and ideas you had earlier. So gave me something kind of flat, right? Need a new hat for dad, pick your favorite. I felt that was kind of flat, but I said, I just gave it positive feedback. Nice, again, please, so we get more variations. Again, kind of flat, just choose your hat. And this time I mentioned, I want the headline to be more psychologically strategic this time around refer back to your analysis earlier. And it says, every dad needs one. Again, not a huge fan of these. Again, let's channel your inner Rory Sutherland, William Leach, Dan Ariely, and legendary copywriters like Gary Halbert, Claude Hopkins, Eugene Schwartz, Gary Benzavinga. It says the DadGang hat is simply irresistible. Again, I wasn't digging it, so I said you can do better than that. So we were heading down to a point where I didn't think he was doing a good job. Again, but better copies weak, right? Wasn't a huge fan. Wearing a great hat does wonders for your parenting skills. Kind of missing the mark. Again, missing the mark. If you're a dad, you need this hat. So this is one of the challenges when working with AI, large language models, ChatGPT, is sometimes the deeper you go within a single chat, and if it's gone off on a direction that you're not happy with, and there's not much recovery to be had. So let's see. So you can see here, I ended up suggesting it a headline and subheadline, and that's because I actually started a new chat because I just decided the train track that this chat is going on is no longer in the direction that I want when it comes to concepts, but when it comes to image generation, we can still use it for that purpose. So let me walk through the other chat that I used to come up with that new headline that I actually liked a lot. The one that was able to make this over here. So I started off the same standard reference image and prompt with the consumer psychology experts, did the breakdown, again, did the analysis for how would you take what you just analyzed and then adapt it to our products. Then this is where it changed a bit. Give 30 different headlines using different approaches from the psychology legends I mentioned. So then it spat out 30 different headlines. And then the one that I ended up liking was this one over here. You wore a cape as a kid, now you wear a cap as a dad. I thought that was pretty cool when I stumbled upon it. So, and there's also another one that I liked. Your kid's first style icon, you. I thought that was pretty good as well, because I think it speaks to the unspoken desire of fathers. Of course, not every father, but a portion of fathers out there. Like for me, as an example, as a father, I much prefer the idea of my son looking up to me for style, even though I'm not really big into style and fashion. But I like the idea of it that he's looking up to me as opposed to anyone else. So I liked this over here, your kid's first style icon, you. I think it speaks to that unspoken desire. So I told it to do it, ended up doing one, but it was a little bit cut off and I didn't double down on it, although we could have. And there's another headline here, the cat that turns heads at daycare drop off. So you can see for the one that I did around, you've got 5 seconds before the kids find you, choose one, because that plays more into the actual engagement approach of the example ad. It did it cut off, which needed to be fixed. So just mention, please fix the top and the bottom are cut off. It ended up doing a pretty good job of it. But again, you can see here, the subtle mistakes that it makes is around like the actual product itself that, you know, you can swap in another hat. And also the hats that I gave it, it actually didn't use all 6. It used this one twice over here. So makes these little nuanced mistakes. But again, simple fix with a designer or swapping it in with Canva. All right, let's jump into another example where we're not actually using a reference image. Where we're not using a reference image, but instead we are going from product image with ChatGPT and then making some stuff like this. So for some context, Etee is a brand that sells plastic-free products. They are run by 2 guys out of Canada and they are a great brand. Let's walk through some of the stuff that it came up with. So you wouldn't eat plastic, don't wear it either. And again, typo here, very fixable. Microplastics are everywhere, even in your beauty products. Chrysalis is packaged without plastic and made with purpose. I could see these ads going to a landing page as opposed to a product page and doing pretty well. All right, another version of you wouldn't eat plastic, don't wear it either. Your moisturizer should age as well as you do because your standards are higher now. You want hydration that lasts, packaging that doesn't harm, and ingredients that respect your skin. Chrysalis delivers all of it beautifully. Problem here though is that the form factor of the product is not accurately depicted, but again, pretty easy swap over here. And by the way, just a little bit of a psychology tactic, ads that contain hands in them, like this, have actually been shown to convert better than without. So something to consider testing, whether you're using ChatGPT or not. Something to consider putting in. Your skin is your first home. Shouldn't you treat it with the same care you give the earth, plastic-free, luxurious, and made with purpose? Again, I'm pretty impressed by the copy it came up with. This one over here, you wouldn't eat plastic, don't wear it either. Microplastics are everywhere, even in your beauty products. Chrysalis is packaged without plastic and made with purpose. And then another one for your moisturizer. And then another one And then another one for your moisturizer should age as well as you do because your standards are higher now, et cetera, et cetera. So pretty cool. I thought it did a pretty good job with some of these. Let's walk through the prompting. All right, so pretty standard, actually not standard. There's a little bit of a difference here. So take on the role of an expert consumer behavior expert, such as Will Leach, Sutherland, Ariely, Cialdini. Using the data you've been trained on, give me every possible reason, non-logical, customers shop with us at Etee, shopetee.com for reference. Use the data you've been trained on about my business. We've been around for a long time. So gives a bunch of non-logical reasons, more emotional / just not straightforward as in like, you know, the products are 50% off or buy one, get one free, right? It's a little bit deeper than that. So based on the analysis, come up with simple image ad concepts for Facebook ad images. I want the images to be simple to create where I attach photos of my product to you and you're able to generate ad images from there. Work within those constraints. So ended up giving more ideas, which I wasn't too impressed with. Didn't really hit the spot for me in what I was going for. So I mentioned I want a bit more copy in here, headline and some body copy, but not too much. So it's still easy to read. And the main thing was I wanted to be able to fit into an image ad while still being easy enough to read when on mobile and make it really touch people emotionally so we can appeal to net new audiences. These images are not intended for bottom of funnel traffic. Give 10 options. And the nuance of what I just highlighted over here around net new audiences and not intended for bottom of funnel traffic is my way of using marketing speak that it's been trained on in order to focus on here, right? People who haven't been exposed to you as opposed to people down here where the messaging is a little bit more simple. So it ended up giving 10 options. I liked one of them, which was number 9. Your skin is your first home. There's just something about that where there is kind of like a comedian. When a comedian tells a really good joke, there's a kernel of truth to it. I liked what it did here where it said, your skin is your first home. Shouldn't you treat it with the same care you give the earth? Plastic-free, luxurious, and made with purpose. There's a lot going on here, which I really like psychologically. There's kind of like you deserve better, right? But then also the earth also deserves a lot as well. So we're hitting on a lot of things here. So I mentioned I like number 9. I've attached an image of our product, generate an ad image, and then it came up with this over here, which I think we did some further refinements on. Yeah, we're close. Please add in the remaining copy that you missed. Plastic-free, luxurious, and made with purpose. So to end up doing that. So this ended up being one that I liked. Again, the product here is not exactly the same as the one that I inputted, but swapping this out is pretty easy. All right, from there, give me 20 more headlines and copy combos. Gave 20 of them. I ended up liking this one over here. Your moisturizer should age as well as you do. Chrysalis protects your skin and the earth for the long run. But I didn't like the body copy, I think. Okay, here. I like number 4. Let's workshop it more. I want more body copy. Give me 10 options. So I ended up giving 10 of them. And then number 8 was the one that I liked. So your moisturizer should age as well as you do because your standards are higher now. You want hydration that lasts, packaging that doesn't harm, and ingredients that respect your skin. Chrysalis delivers all of it beautifully. So it ended up creating something like this. And then I noticed that there was a white space here that I thought either we can keep empty or we could do something with. So that's what I did. I actually asked it, what should we put in the empty white space, if anything, if you were one of the psychology experts? It ended up giving 5 different ideas. I liked number 3, which was a human touch. So add a subtle image of a hand gently holding or reaching toward the jar. And again, the reason why I chose this was because of the statistic around ads containing hands in the images actually do better. So it ended up doing something like this instead. So it didn't actually fill out the space that we were asking it to fill out. It actually ended up just replacing it altogether. And that's kind of one of the nuances that I've experienced in working with image generation models over the past few years is sometimes it won't do what it is that you intended for it to do verbatim, but it'll go into a direction that's actually okay. Like, I actually quite like this direction that it took, which is different from the other one where it's just the product with no hand on the right side, instead of putting a hand over here. And I like it so much so that what I would probably do is just repurpose this image, except put the proper product in here. And then I like the rest of it. So I think there's something to be said about working with image generation models and language models where you take what it gives you. Sometimes that's not exactly what you were looking for, but rolling with it in new directions that you might actually end up liking even more. So ended up saying, this looks pretty good, but swap the GR from my actual product image. Ended up doing this. So it's close, it's getting there, but it's not exactly what the product looks like. But as far as concepting goes, it's done well. And doing a swap for the actual product in hand isn't too hard. And so after another try, what I did was I've attached it again for your reference. Try again, please. It has ended up doing a better job. It's a little bit closer, but not exactly what the actual product looks like. So some touch-ups needed, but again, close to that 95% mark. Then we started taking it in another direction. Let's brainstorm more copy and headlines. This time that appeals to the consumer's concerns with microplastics. 10 ideas, please. So it gives 10 ideas over here. Ended up liking number 5, which we can do a recap on. You wouldn't eat plastic. Don't wear it either. Microplastics are everywhere. Even in your beauty products, Chrysalis is packaged without plastic and made with purpose. So ended up creating it in this aspect ratio, which is not what we were looking for. But concept-wise, looks pretty good. Again, has a hand in it, has a product, and then has a copy over here with messaging that is compelling for new audiences. So told it to adjust the aspect ratio and then started to hallucinate on the copy that it needed to have. So ended up telling it looks good, but do it without previous headline and body copy. Ended up just not following that instruction at all. You missed the mark, gave it a refresher, headline and body copy, and it ended up doing a better job relative to the 2 iterations that it did where it totally took a different direction from the copy. And also, let's just double check. This version actually fixed the typo for wouldn't. So just zooming back, I think the one notable one that's a little bit different to mention is going to be this one over here, the one with the woman eating a plastic sandwich. So to get there, I actually started a new chat and you can see the prompts here. So help me visually depict the core message being expressed here. Give me 10 concepts, gave 10 ideas. Then I told it to generate an image for number 7, which was an X-ray of face with plastic inside. And I wasn't too impressed with this. It wasn't too usable. I said, let's just do the original image, but work in an image of a woman eating a plastic sandwich somewhere in the image. And so the idea actually, I think, came from me and not from ChatGPT. So that's where we ended up getting this one. And then I tried doing another one where she's not cut off prematurely at the bottom of the photo. Ended up doing something like this, which is kind of funny. It kind of looks like she is on the edge of a table, which is a little bit better. But yeah, needs a little bit of touching up so that this bottom part isn't cut off, which we could touch up with the designer. All right, there's some other examples that we can get to another time, but just going to wrap up this one with some commentary about my excitement for what's now capable, because assuming you're direct to consumer and assuming that Facebook ads is your primary driver of distribution, the bottlenecks used to be from 0 to 1 million, a shortage of ideas and execution, which is no longer a constraint because ChatGPT can help you with both the ideation process and then the execution to about 90-95%. And then the challenge from, let's say, 1 million to 10 million to 30 million to 50 million, it's going to be consistency of execution and having processes around making sure that you are consistently coming up with new creative and maintain ad volume growth. And the beautiful thing is that this is now no longer a constraint because of ChatGPT. And the exciting thing is that when the API becomes available it's going to be awesome because we're going to be able to integrate the generation of these images at scale through agents and automation workflows so that a portion of this manual work that we've been doing within the ChatGPT interface can be eliminated. And this arrow here, when it comes to the amount of time that it takes from idea or trying to come up with ideas to go on live, is going to shrink even more. And our ability to reach new audiences more effectively than we would have the potential to previously is now available to everyone. So, super exciting times.